Hey there, coffee lovers. Want to support your favorite creator and help end the stigma surrounding so much of the motherhood and parenthood experience? Check out my Buy Me a Coffee page. For just a few bucks, you can treat me to a warm beverage, or you can join a monthly membership to help me keep creating the content you love. It's a win-win. Just head to buymeacoffee.com/Quiet Connection Podcast and check out our options. Let's fuel our mama mission together. Welcome to Quiet Connection, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma around postpartum mental health. I'm Chelsea. This week, I'm connecting with JD, who shares his unique perspective on parenting that has been shaped by his Montessori upbringing and teaching experience. JD is also a fellow mental health podcaster and advocate, helping others around the world to tell their stories and be seen and heard. Throughout our time together, the common thread is clear. Parenting is a journey filled with learning, growth, and the necessity of compassion towards yourself and others. Here's JD. Today I'm here with JD. JD, how are you?
Oh, we're doing well for a Monday here.
Yeah, it is. Does it feel like a Monday? It feels like a Monday.
It absolutely does. I like Mondays, though. Like, I'm the one that's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, if you changed it, like, it's still going to have the same feeling. So why not just embrace it? But definitely, like, since having kids, like, then I get that. I understand it a little bit differently. Like, you know, you're excited after a weekend, and then, like, it hits them that, like, this is not a weekend anymore.
No, especially if you're a stay-at-home parent. Or if you work from home. Yep.
It's
not different.
It's not. So you have to find a way to, like, make it different. So I still enjoy it for the most part. So.
Well, that's good. Maybe I'll try to adopt that outlook. I'll try that on.
It's like another. It's like, for me, it's simply just a chance to pick up what I didn't, you know, get a chance to last week, whether that's something work-wise or, you know, personal-wise, or even just something like emotionally. Like, you know, it's like, okay, I was a little bit on edge, you know, towards the end of last week. Let's not do that again. And so it's like a reset button, like, not like last week didn't happen, basically, is how I look at it. I don't know where that mantra has come from. I don't know what. I think maybe like my teacher brain still coming in every once in a while.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Well, that leads perfectly into how I found you. You have many names on social media. You go by many different things. I initially found you as the Montessori dad.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, this is my person. Like, I love Montessori to begin with. I'm also an educator, or I was a special educator. So I was just like, yes, but you are doing amazing things, and I could list it all off here, but what would be much better is if you could sort of introduce yourself and let me know who you were before you were a dad.
Who I was before a dad. Oh, man. Yikes, that's fun. I like that way of asking that question. It does sound complicated, but I actually do a pretty good job in my own head, at least, of making sure it all makes sense, because I can't process when someone says, like, well, I do this, then you're like, wait a minute, I thought you did that too, and then, like, you go to find it and it's like nowhere to be found, and it's like, wait a minute, you are that person. So I make sure that, like, it's not confusing as possible. It does go all into the same realm. But before this, before what I do work-wise and personal-wise, I was just a guy in the world. I've grown up Montessori, though, so it still makes sense. And that is not a fact that I take lightly, because it's not something that's always possible. For a lot of people, and it almost seems, and I hate to knock on Montessori, but it almost seems out of reach for a lot of situations for people, because it does fall under the realm of private school, mostly. My wife is a perfect example. I met her as a Montessori teacher eventually, and she taught in a public school system, but it wasn't a public Montessori middle school. It was like a special program, and these kids somehow got selected to do it. Don't ask that one, but I have somehow managed to be Montessori predominantly my whole life, until I was like high school, and that's really just because there was not an option for that. But my dad, when I was, ready for school or ready for some kind of like aftercare, he's the one who found Montessori, and he's the Wall Street stockbroker. Is how he grew up, and that's how he met my mom on Wall Street as accountants. And it's my mom who, up until about 7 months ago, has been a Montessori teacher or director here for probably the last 20 years of her life. So she kind of was like, okay, well, I don't want to just send my kids eventually there. I'd like to do this. So it's kind of always been embodied in me. And so I don't call myself an expert. I don't even know what that means when it comes to Montessori. I mean, I've certainly been certified when I was a middle school teacher for 10 years. But even that was always weird to me because it's a life philosophy. I'm explaining who I am. Just for anybody listening, it's like, where is he going? It does beautifully tie in. It's a life philosophy for me, and it encompasses a lot of what I am now, for sure, as a dad and as a husband, as a human being. But if I look back, it's a lot of what's informed my own life and just my own processing of things that have happened in life, that you realize how connected things are. I guess, let's see, I haven't been teaching for about 8 years now. But it's still, we obviously see it with 2 kids, but I didn't teach those age kids. We were trained so that we knew what, kids coming into a middle school, adolescent realm were, taught if they came through a Montessori, but this is what was going on. So that's still new to me. My son will come home, and I use him as the example because he's got all these math and grammar things coming at him. But even when he was a toddler, my wife would look at me and have you ever done that work? I'm like, not a clue. Maybe, but I don't remember it to the capacity of what's that skill? And then so I turned to my mom, and he's learning, to sound out letters, or he's what was he doing? Number rods. So he's picturing these square rods that are blue and red. For anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, they're blue and red, and they're different lengths, so they're different counts. And so he starts by matching them from smallest to biggest. So your math, air quotes there, and that's really all it is just looking at it as perception and sizes, but you have no idea that you're doing math. And so I had no clue what that was actually doing. So even though it's been my life, it's still not. But then as I began to realize what I enjoy in life, and what I enjoyed especially about teaching was not the academic side. And I used to joke when kids came into my class that had never been in a Montessori environment, to explain that. And I said, well, it comes with a lot of eye rolls when I said it, but here in our classroom, academics kind of come second. It's the life skills that come first. Because if you can't, and we're talking middle school, so, a syllabus, reading a textbook for some kids for the first time, it's the first time I've ever seen one, note-taking, highlighting in books, all those things that perceiving the world. If you can't do that, it doesn't matter if 2 + 2 or, a history lesson, right? So if I look back at the things that I enjoyed about teaching, it was those life things, the life lessons, the explaining the world, the kid that was all of a sudden next to my desk, and I'm asking, Ethan, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I just wanted to sit next to you, Mr. Mergolo. You're right, though? Yeah, I just wanted someplace else to sit instead of, around my friends. And I got that kid because I don't like to be around people. So much of what I do now is that same story. So I have 2 different realms. The mental health side of it falls into the community aspect of what possibly the adult needs more than the child, but nothing different really. We just understand a lot more, obviously, than the 4-year-old or the toddler or the teenager. You just kind of grow with your understanding of what words and meanings and emotions mean. But it still ties into the fact that, it's the life that I've lived centers around, just finding meaning and finding a calm, understanding, a compassion and grace, is what I kind of focus on when it comes to the adult side of it. And the podcast that I host, soon to be 4, all tie in together. All tie in together in the sense that they're stories. Everybody has a story, some a little bit more specific than others. I don't prescribe to the notion that it has to be traumatic before it, becomes a life lesson, because your version of traumatic is going to be way different than mine. We just like to hear those stories because it's oh, that didn't happen to me, thank goodness, but it maybe did. So they kind of fall naturally. They don't feel like work to me because I as you're finding out now as I'm just introducing myself, I love to talk. And I know that other people do too. It just may not be exactly what you want it to be. And that's okay. I don't think that a story is powerful just because you told everything that you needed to say about it. There's things that you get to keep. It's just about yourself and, maybe just, somebody close to you. But still falls under the same category that it's life that you're living and there's humans involved and there's a connectedness involved. The dad part is just kind of new, and it's really just fun for me most days, even though I get angry just like everybody else and frustrated. I mean, I did just this morning look at my son trying to explain that, listen, you need to put the blinking Halloween decoration down for a second so you can have your breakfast. It's a daily battle, with him to get changed. Like, he's like, I just want to play. I'm like, dude, if you just got changed, you'd have so much more time. Like, don't you understand this after 4 years? But at the end of the day, what I think I've figured out, at least, is that there's something that I'm missing. Like, all those quotes that you're like, whatever's triggering you, that's what you need to heal from. I can at least tell you that I believe that, because I'm the one who'll go to bed and sit there and go, okay, that was pretty dumb to act that way. What did he actually mean? And we have a 2-year-old too. What was she actually? She's confusing. She's gonna be the confusing one for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that. But that's my lesson somewhere in there. She embodies every bit of frustration I probably had with every girlfriend, every drama-filled female in my life that I can tell you always frustrated because I'm not attracted to that. How do I become attracted to that? Because she's my daughter. So you're gonna tumble and fall and do all the toddler things that your brother didn't. How do I take a breath and learn that you're just the same, along with that. So there's who I am and there's what I do. But to me, I mean, I don't look at them and go, I got to do all this different things. I got to post this different here, but say that different there. It's all the same to me. And that's taken a lot of work to get to and find that that there's an umbrella that maybe it all falls under and they feel like a lot of little things. But I guess that's my version of it. If it feels like work, then you're not doing it right. That's my version of it. It's it's my life just bottled up in some way, different form. And so I selfishly was doing a lot of these things for me. But I know that other people connected in some way, shape, or form. So, yeah.
I call it selfish selflessness. Yeah.
Healthy selfishness, actually, is how I usually phrase that. I used to say that with kids, but yeah, same thing. Exactly.
I like that. Yeah. Because it's very similar. We're both story collectors.
Yeah.
I think it really shines through. Like I said, you have different podcasts that you host and social media handles associated with those, but throughout them all, what's interconnected and the message that really shines through is you just care. You care about people and you care about mental health. You care about kids' mental health. You care about just people's mental health. And it's beautiful. And for anyone listening who obviously can't see, I don't know if this is just my perception, but every time I've met with you and chatted with you, you're just chill. You're just so chill.
It's probably because I'm sitting in my bedroom right now, so my brain is fired that way. No, it's a lot of effort. I will tell you that. And it's not and it's something I have to work hard at. And it's not because I lose it and I've spent years losing it. I'm a super patient person, but Lord help me. I'm not necessarily, and it's mind blowing sometimes. I'm why in the world is that stressing you out? And so again, I mean, I'm aware of those things, so it makes me pause, but I don't know. I'm quick to get frustrated, at little things, but I'm also quick to realize you just got frustrated at a little thing. And how do we fix that? And how do we not necessarily make it not happen again? But how do you kind of manage it differently? Because, I mean, even if you don't have kids, you can see right away, hopefully somebody got impacted by the way you did that. I just get this gift that I have 2 kids that make it very clear actions, not even words that they're doing. And you have to bite your tongue because you're no, don't say it like that. And you're you said it like that, you idiot. Yeah. That's why they're doing that, our 2-year-old. And I think it was me just getting down on my, on their level. And I just didn't want to kneel down on the ground. So I kind of leaned over and I wasn't shaking my, squinting but I had my finger and I was guys, and I'm Italian. So my hands are pointing at something. I was like, guys, you can't do that. It's still a gentle voice, but I was like on a level. My daughter was looking at our son, and I don't even know if she would, but she was doing this, and she wasn't saying anything. I'm like, you idiot. Like, it's cute, damn it. But no, you can't. That's all right. Let's change that. It's that. That's what helps me calm is just my own, and that's a lifelong thing. I don't know what parent gave me that one, but thank you. It's just a realization of what you are, who you are, and the fact that anything from the greeting that you didn't give the checkout person to the kindness that you showed your, spouse, or son or dog, or, all of that has this ripple effect. And I am keenly aware of that. I think, that might be my one redeeming quality some days, is that I'm just at least aware of that. And then, we'll work as long as I need to figure out how to not have that happen as awful as it did before.
I'm going to call that your superpower.
Yeah, it is.
Sure,
I will definitely tell you that. It's like the low end of like being egotistical, I think, like, because I'm just like that. I've been that, and I know that doesn't work at all for me in the long run. Like, people definitely get shut out, and choices are just not as great as they could be. And you just realize how stray you are from like your family. And that's something that's always been ingrained in me is whatever you do, like, your family is impacted as well, big or small, but you're tied to them no matter what, no matter how hard you try to push away. You are still like, that's still your last name. That's still who gave birth to you. They're going to hurt too. And if you have any bit of empathy, you'll realize that seeing your parents cry or seeing your kids cry because you did something, not fun,
No.
So
Not well, and that all of that kind of lends itself beautifully to my next big question. Did you always envision yourself being a dad?
No.
That
but
shocks me.
Very quick. But not the complete opposite either. I wasn't like, I never want to be a dad. Dang it, I have a son now. It was kind of this, and my wife is the same way, and that's possibly, I could trace mine back before being a teacher. I worked in retail for like 10 years, and like, we used to joke, you'd have these kids come in and they were fine, like no problem, no being a kid. But then you had the kid that was just like screaming and like, clothes would be on the floor. And I joke would be like, well, that's reason number 592. I don't want kids. But it was just that. I can distinctly remember, throughout my life, I've never had this conversation of like, I don't ever want kids. And my mom never was like, are you going to have kids someday? Like, please tell me you're going to. She's like that with my brother, but that's my fault. Because I have to, but never put like, doesn't like, Dustin, his name, I'm going to call him out, but never like on him in the sense of like, Dustin, like, you really should have kids. It's just, it's just a mom being a mom naturally. But it's the same way of being married. I didn't have this like, I can't wait to be married. I can't wait to have a significant other. It was, just neither kind of here or there. It was just kind of, where does life land? And my wife, as much as I know about that side of her, we don't have these deep conversations like that all the time, although we do, but we never like got married and we're like, okay, well, step 2 here. When do you think we're going to have kids? It just really was like, I'd like to start a family, and, what do we do about that? And what do we need to think about? And it wasn't like an obsessed, thought process of, okay, well, here's how much money we make. Here's where we live. We should probably move. It was just kind of there. And like, and it sounds like no way, but it really is. We really didn't have this huge conversation. It was like, yep, I love you more than I thought ever possible. What do we want to do next with this world that we live in? We had those conversations like, this is an awful world. Some days I don't want to bring a kid into that, but then the flip side of it was like, well, it's our job, to kind of help them navigate, not protect them, but navigate the world. So, let's see what happens. And then number 2 was even more kind of like a less thought, maybe a little bit in the sense of like, okay, this is financially, what does that look like? But it wasn't a worry in the sense of like, I don't think we can do this, but I really want, it wasn't, like a complete like dive in the other direction, but just enough of a thought that it was like, okay, hold on a second. But that didn't matter because, even as much as I would have liked to have thought about it, but even with one child, or two, it didn't change. They had no idea what was coming.
No, you just can't. You don't know what's coming.
The second child, our daughter had a little bit more thought just for that, because it was like, not necessarily like, do you want to have another child or not? It was like, what does it mean? I guess is the best way to put it. We did it because, we both were okay with that. We both have, well, she has an older sister. I have a younger brother, but we're, one of two. So we're familiar with that family dynamic. And it was really, the second biggest thought was for our son, that we thought like him having a sibling and a best friend would be great. And then it was like, okay, we're both of us have siblings that are 5 years apart. And we know what that looks like. And it was like, we'd like them to be closer together. So it was like that kind of thought, but it wasn't I don't know, I don't want another kid. Do we really need to do this? It was never, two sides of a thought. We really had the same thought process. So it wasn't a hard no of like, yeah, no. In fact, I just said it like a couple days ago to my wife, that it was like, and I would have never thought, like, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I'd have been like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be a dad. There's no way. But then I also, if you'd, asked me if I didn't want to be, I would have been like, yeah, well, it sounds like, I'd love to, so it was a kind of nice in between, of really like just mentally preparing yourself, but then not at all.
Yeah. I thought that's like, so it's very on brand. It's like you were open to it. You were open
exactly.
to it.
There you go.
Yeah. So I think that's a really healthy way to approach bringing kids into the world. I think
so. And it probably stands for a lot of like big conversations that if you really have to like have this huge amount of thought, then that maybe this isn't what you need to be doing. Certainly things lend themselves to a little bit like, I don't believe in this whole like leap of faith kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You do have to have some, you probably did. You just didn't realize it, like working yourself up to making that big conversation or big, jump, but it really wasn't, because you've been working towards something like that. It's just, I don't know. I think if you have to really like stress and think about it, then like don't do it, whatever it is, because it's only going to like persist. You have to find like a level of calm somewhere in there, and then, because who knows what happens again. I'm not going to tell you like that works for the case with parenting. I could see that if I really didn't want to have kids, I can speak for myself obviously better than my wife, it just wouldn't. You'd constantly, anything that they did that irritated you, even the slightest, that's where your head's going to go for sure, and be like, oh, see, I didn't even want the kid, and that's not fair at all. So it's like, if you don't have this middle ground or calm sense to whatever this big decision is going to be, don't do it, because that thought's going to keep popping up forever.
Yeah, for sure. When we had talked initially, you had sort of mentioned kind of that, like, in terms of mental health, like, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you had said the pregnancies were pretty standard, and then your wife may have experienced a little bit of like mental health challenges after birth. Was that with both kiddos?
Not so much with our son.
Okay.
The experience we had with relatively normal. Two different experiences just because of two different hospital systems, both within the same state. Both very at the top of their game when it comes to health. We won't name any names. Wild to see. Nonetheless, what the difference between public and private health is. But what kind of got me on the realm of like especially with, when it comes to dad's mental health was being in the hospital with our son. And it wasn't anything glaring that was like, I have to always be careful because, and I forget what I like posted the other day, that I had to like really think about how I was wording this, because I'm like, I'm by far not the sexist person at all. But I'm very keenly aware of, how things can be like perceived, when you have those feelings. And I think I said something along the lines of, it had something to do with the fact that like, so I'm the default parent, and I don't know where that term comes from, but I've only like recently figured out that that's what that's called.
Yeah,
I'm the default parent, and there was no conversation. It was like, this is my life and this is what I do. Yeah, I'll stay home. And I enjoyed it, no matter how struggle it was, but now having two of them, and I don't spend as much time with two of them as I did with the one-on-one, but I am responsible for everything mom related, right? That society deems as like what the mom should do.
Yeah.
And so, over time, I've become like aware of, like how that feels and what that looks like, even more so. But when we began this journey there in the hospital, even just the questions that they asked my wife, and she is very level-headed. She has to be for her job. Number one, she has a pain in the ass for a husband. So there's number two.
Oh my God.
And she has two kids, so she is super level-headed. And the questions on there, I don't remember exactly what they were, but it was like something about like crying within the past some ridiculous amount of time, like hour or 2 hours or something, probably a little bit longer than that, but still within the realm of the fact that you just gave birth. It wasn't like last week.
Yeah.
Or like, 4 months ago. It was like within the past couple hours of like, you giving birth. And both of us had the same look on our face. Because I was reading them out loud to her because our son was there with us. Like he wasn't off getting checked out before, because this is like as you're about to leave kind of things, right?
Yeah.
And I said it to her and she looked at me and she's like, just answer no. Because I know that if I answer yes, it's going to do X, Y, and Z. And she knew that she didn't need that level of intervention. And I am aware of enough that I wasn't like, I don't know if I feel comfortable answering that. I was comfortable knowing that, like, I knew what she meant. And I knew that she would be okay. But it was just so strange to ask that question to somebody. Because I could see anybody else being asked that question and going a lot of different directions, right? Not knowing how to answer that and then just spitting something out. Saying yes and maybe getting some kind of intervention. I don't even know what that would have like implied. My wife knew some version of that, but probably like nothing, because that's not what she does. But
yeah.
she knew enough that it was going to like send her down this road that was not going to be helpful, really. So I could see it going a lot of different, directions. So that's what triggered me, at least on the sense of just the whole conversation around postpartum, not even like, dad or mom version of it, but just how easy it was to kind of like write it off, I guess the best way to say it. And that was like, it was weird to me. It felt weird. But then, as time has gone on here and like, this is what I do. Like, I can remember several conversations, as my son was, I say younger, he's only going to be 4. When he's like guy. 1, 2, and here we are just the 3 of us. And my wife would ask me like on walks or something like that, like, if I'm okay. And I could tell you, like, I was very stressed out at moments, because here I am having to do some version of this. This is a lot more than I used to do, but having to like, find my own identity as work or just, who I am now versus what I could do before a child. And then here I am responsible for all these things that I've never done. And even when the second one came along, I thought I knew everything, at least, and I knew nothing still. So, that's what's kind of caught me on that realm. But I'm certainly not the one that like, you have really like other people posting like dad's wise, and they're like, dad should be heard too, and blah, blah, blah. And like, it's not that for me. It's kind of like the more basic end of it that like, it's been months now. Like, it was like the post of like, somebody was like, it was like all these like words popping up of like why dad wouldn't be okay. And it was like a voiceover, and somebody asked like, are you okay? And he like, the guy looks up and he goes, yeah, I'm okay. I'm like, no, that right there. Like, that's where I'm at. Like, no, you're not okay. And it's that version that society has. And I forget now what I posted, but it was just last week. And I was sitting there really thinking about it. In fact, I shared some version of it, like with my brother, just to see if he'd come back and be like, dude, not telling him that's what I was going to do with it. And he didn't say anything. I'm like, okay, so I worded that like semi-okay. But it was that. It was like, I feel everything that a stay-at-home mom by American society would feel. But it's like here's where it gets touchy. It's like I'm not allowed to feel that because I am dad. And it's like American society version of that is like 9 to 5. Like, I come home, where's the dinner? I'm probably exaggerating a lot of it, but because dads really aren't always like that. But you know what I mean?
That's
but it's not like I want to be, it's not like I want to like, like men should feel this too. Like women shouldn't feel, it's not that. I don't even know how to explain it. You know what I mean? It's just like,
yeah.
there is versions of it there. I'm, certainly I did not give birth. So there's a whole nother level there. It's not that, but that's the part of like the dad side of mental health that I'm at, is just like not being okay and being okay with saying that versus like, having this weight of like, and I can still feel the looks, and I am, I get it every morning when I drop both kids off at school, because we don't do that just yet, like both of them. And here I am, like covered in tattoos. I have no care what car I'm driving. If I did my hair, like, this is it. This is what I woke up as, right?
Yeah.
What I'm wearing, it's usually some kind of plain t-shirt and shorts, and I'm wearing, like, Toms. I don't care what I look like getting out of the car. And I can see most dads are just like, where's your suit and tie? Like, where's your expedition? Where's the, why is your kid not bundled and, like, drop off in the rain is the perfect example of where we're at when it comes to parenting. Because it's like, you feel like super protective mode. And here I am just walking across the street as it's like sprinkling, not parked in front of the school, with 2 kids, 4 and 2, like in my hand. Like I could feel it. And I've always felt it, that it's like, no, that's not dad. Like you should be like super swooped. No, like this is me. This is dad. Like I'd have to watch that. This is a phrase that like my son catches me on. I don't care. But what I really mean is it doesn't bother me, because that's not the version that I am, like, and that's not the version we should be, male or female, is that like things like that bother you. It should just be like, no, this is where I'm at, and this is what I feel, because I mean, here's the long story of it. Like my kids are gonna feel that. So if I'm looking at them, and I'm stressed out, and I'm sure they can figure it out now, or one of them can. If I'm not comfortable saying that I'm not okay now, what are they going to do? I can't sit there and be like, when he's got a bump on his knee, or she's crying and she doesn't know why. The version that is the answer that you're not okay, what that looks like as a parent then is the one that's telling you to just deal with it and let it go and move on and stop crying, or it's just a scratch. That's the version that comes out then. Whereas the other side of it, where I'm telling them that I am feeling uncomfortable, they're gonna actually tell me. And I mean, I can tell you that works, like, for sure. I mean, my son will tell you, because his sister pushed him, that it hurt his feelings, and you're just like, well, she's halfway across the room, but something hurt his feelings. And so it's like, that is where I'm at with it when it comes to being dad's mental health. It's not the dad should be at home cooking, taking care of people, like mental health. It's the version of just being okay with the emotions that go along with that, because society just doesn't want that to be,
Yeah, and what you did, whether you realized it or not, is you answered the unasked question. So when I had initially asked about your wife and was going to lead into you and how you felt about, because first and foremost, there is not enough care and consideration given to the postpartum person in general. There is even less care and consideration given to the non-birthing partner.
Correct.
Whether that be dad, whether that be
correct,
mom
right.
number 2, dad number 2, whatever. Yeah. Even you just recounting, like reading, it's called the Edinburgh scale.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's garbage and I hate it. And
I'll tell you, she's an oncology nurse for the hospital, one of the hospitals that our kids were born in. So she had a little bit more of an understanding, is where I was going, that, of what possibly that means, and knows that it's not going to go anywhere.
It wouldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
More often than not, they would just say, okay, well, make sure you're drinking enough water. And
right.
Make sure you get some sleep.
Talk to your mental health professional if you need to. Thank you for playing.
But why doesn't dad get a rating scale? Why doesn't partner get checked in with? Why don't the parents as a unit get like that sit down, talk to, like, okay, how are you feeling right now? You guys just had a huge major life change.
Yeah.
You didn't literally birth the child.
No.
But you both just brought a human into the world. Where are you at? How you doing?
Yeah. And what's the there's got to be like a, like the kid has a check-in, physically, right?
Like
every,
first week,
and then it's like,
weeks.
eventually it's gone. And then it's like every year, But even if she answered yes, like there's not going to be another, there's going to be maybe one or two conversations, maybe another professional down the line when you have a follow-up appointment. You'll get a great pediatrician that's like, so how are you doing, mom? And that would be okay. Like, I don't care if you ask me the question there. So,
It
doesn't bother me. Like if you ask me at that point, but somebody, because we're connected, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's almost like we're like if dad got angry, I hate it. I've never been that person, but like it's like I was saying in the beginning, like there's things that trigger me and I'm like, dang it. Like, what was that? Like, why did you even, he has no idea what he's doing. Like, he's tired right now. Like, of course he just toppled over his sister, or through a block or whatever. Yeah. So, but it's like almost like I'm allowed to be angry because like I'm the dude in this situation, or like it's like I'm allowed to not be like, and I don't like that. Like I hate that like thought process that's there. That's like, nope. But then I hate the other version of it's like, you have to, like the dad feels like he has to be like super dad, where it's like, you're emotionally in touch and you're physically there and doing everything when you come. That's not sustainable either. That wouldn't be sustainable who you are, So it's like, you're right. Like, where is that extra conversation now? It's like I like to think of all the time when you like just the mental health conversation altogether. It's fun and catchy to say it's okay not to be okay. That's step one, but that's been step one for a long time now. The next step is what do you do with that? And that's not going to be a quick answer. That's going to take a long time, but you have to answer that now. We're at that point that I just saw something. I don't know who it was. Before we got on this, I was like switching over like my you make me sound like I have a lot of social media profiles, and I'm like not Mr. Social Media at all, but it definitely feels like it. Yeah. When I switch over, like I don't scroll, but whatever's on top, that's obviously what's going to catch my eye. And it was some post from some parenting thing that I follow, but it was like a woman sitting on a toilet and she was in tears, and there was like a medical bag near. I didn't even read the caption other than the fact that it was like postpartum something. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that was a really cool picture. That's not real. Somebody posed for that one. But like, well, now what do you do with that? Like 900 people had already liked that. And it was only like 30 minutes, but it's like, what did those 900 people get from that? Yeah, I feel you. And then they go on their day, or yeah, I get it. I need to do something about that. And that's the part that now we need to, right. I mean, whoever you are, whether you're the birth parent, or you adopted that parent, neither one of you, that everybody's going to experience some version because you have no idea what you were getting into really in the end.
None of us do. Parenting is the ultimate mystery.
My wife feels it. So I'll answer that one in a little bit more detail because you're right. I didn't quite like get to where she's at now. But we do have a second one. She's in a different spot with the second one than she was. Not way off base, but there's the mom guilt has definitely kicked in. Took 2 years and another child, but the mom guilt kicked in, and partly it's the way that our daughter came into the world. Normal everything other than it's my fault. I have a high palate, which I didn't realize for 40 years until her daughter was born. Actually 41, if we're being technical. That she has a high palate and she was not, and our son kind of did too. And it's weird. There's a good comparison of conversations and how you were just kind of ready to be done. They were done with you in the hospital. He kind of had something. They had a little bit of like help as far as like ways to position him and, figure out how to latch and blah, blah, blah. And that was important to us. But she didn't, and she couldn't. So she had a very, very challenging first week. We were just looking at pictures the other night because we get those like memories from Google Photos. Like, here's 12 years ago. I was like, well, I didn't remember doing that 12 years ago. I wish I was there. But it was like a picture of her, and it was like night and day from like the first couple days to the time. And we had to take her to the ER because she just was not. I mean, we had conversations. It was like, it took a week, but we had conversations with pediatricians. You do the, the 24-hour follow-up, all that. And it was like, they didn't even catch it until it was like too much. And she had a lot of intervention for a good couple months there of how to even just get her to, be able to position. She didn't breastfeed. She had breast milk, but we had to lay her on the bed, like on her side, like with a bottle. And there's a disconnect there for mom, even though she's absolutely like understood that this is what's going to happen because my child's safety and health is important. But her first week for both of them was traumatic. And you see it with everything that my wife does with our daughter. And certainly, I can tell you, having a younger brother, he definitely gets a little bit more lenient conversation. If I said half the things that he says to mom, even at, 40 and 35, or 35 and 30. It's like, what? If I did that or said that, you would just have me like yelling one way up the other. So I understand that, but like everything that happens, like it's way more sensitive. It's way more, I'm going to use the word protective very lightly, but it's the only word I got right now. But it's because of that moment. It's because of that week. And she knows it. And I gently remind her that, it's okay that that's what that is. But that's why it's there. And if we don't start, it doesn't mean she has to see a professional. It doesn't mean you have to. But you have to at least be understanding of the fact that here's where certain things come from. So you never know. And that's why you can't just let it go and be like, yep, I'm good. Because would it have come out 2 years later if we didn't have a daughter? Maybe. As you learn to navigate a different world as the kid grows up. Like I'm the one who drops them off at school, and my wife like refused to for day one with our son because she knew what was going to happen. So I get to take that one, but it's like I don't like it either.
Yeah.
When he cries, I at least know that like the best thing for him is to get the heck out of there, Dad. Even though I can see it through the door that he's starting to tear up, But for some parents, that's hard. So it's like just being aware of those things and being aware that any day now something could pop up, and you have to kind of be ready for it. And ready means how do we manage it? How do we be okay to do what needs to be done, whatever that means for you,
Yeah, and that leads kind of beautifully into my next sort of question about how you guys navigate. How do you and your partner navigate your own mental health while also supporting each other in your mental health journeys as parents and as people?
The best quality we ever have for the two of us, and long before there were two kids involved in the conversation, we are super great at communicating. There's maybe my second superpower. I don't know if you call that like a second superpower or whatever it is.
Add it to your superpower
obviously,
tool belt.
like I have no problem telling you anything. I'm reserved in the sense like this is maybe something that you want to know, but it's not something you need to know. But when it comes to her, she's gonna hear exactly how I feel, and not like a. In a like, this is your fault, this is why I feel, not in the sense of like, shush, I'm going to tell you this now. It's truly just whenever the timing is right. Sometimes I get it wrong that like my kids are right there and I'm telling her that like, this is driving me nuts. But I don't know how to deal with that. I'm 4 years in. I don't know how to do this with a kid in front of me. I just know how to be in front of her. I will tell her exactly how I feel. She's not always good at that at first, but she'll get there. And I know that going in, that it's like, yes, that's frustrating me. It's like, could you just not, just brush it off for a moment? Can you just like tell me? But she will, just in a different way. So we're great at communicating with each other. And great just means that we know that we need to. It doesn't mean we have this like perfect formula of like, we're going to stop and have a timeout or a pause or anything like fancy. It's just, we just know that that's the only thing that's going to happen. And we know that we're just both doing our best with it. And she, I think we know each other fairly well. And that goes back to what you asked about, like, talking about having kids. And getting married was the same thing. Like it wasn't like, you want to get married. It wasn't that. It was just, this is where this is going. And so I think our whole life is always just kind of 12 years together. 6 years of those married. It was just kind of there, and we just kind of took the time to really get to know each other, and we knew ourselves as best you can, at like piece by piece, and so it just sits here. So if I get upset at something, she'll be quick to tell me, maybe not in that moment, maybe it's just a kind of, all right, like, let's just let it go for now, let's, and then like, that's my cue to like, okay, I'm just stop for a second, like, this isn't going. She'll be quick to tell me that she knows that that's not who I am. So it's not like upset that I did something wrong, or like, you can't be like that, blah, blah. It's like she knew the next step was, yes, that was not the right way to do this, but the real thing is that that's not who you are, what's bothering you, and vice versa. Like I said, she's the calmest person I know outside of my mom, but it's funny as all get out to watch her get upset at my daughter. And I joke with her all the time that we can't wait till they become teenagers, because the two of them, and I'm going to do the same thing with our son. Like we have the same personality. We just don't have this like giant butt in the heads, but it's just so funny to see her with our daughter that like our son didn't flop. He didn't do anything toddler. And so
Wow.
like now we're seeing it at, like both with him and her because he sees her and it's like, okay,
Yep.
flopping on the floor works. Maybe, I don't know. Let's try it.
Yeah.
But because the first time she did it, even he was looking at us like, what's that? Like, what happened here? Like, he looked up at us, and we're all like, we were going out the door to go somewhere, and I'm like, I don't know. Can you get up the floor though? But it's funny. Like, she's like, I mean, the patience level is like shortened with her, and that's not who she is, and has never been. Even though we're both patient, she's always been like beyond patience with everything. So it's just a recognition of that, like, okay, you have reached a level that's not you. How do we walk back and come back to that for the two of us? And ultimately then, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you should start taking those quotes like literally. Like, the thing that triggers you is the thing you need to heal from. Better, that's not just a fancy quote. If you're not watching those things, that's really where things are snowballing and going wrong, is truly you. It's your lack of understanding of where space your child is in, or what, season of life they're in. Like, did it frustrate you? Yeah, absolutely. But there's a reason why it frustrated you. And to find that is like, I don't want to say it's like the magic key, but it's the key to unlocking like so much, as far as like your frustration levels for everybody, really.
It's beautiful is like the word that I use so much. So I need a thesaurus open to that page because I use beautiful for everything. But I'm just going to do it again.
Yeah, no. If it works, it works.
Right? It's beautiful, the relationship that you have. I think communication, you hear it all the time. Oh yeah, communication. Every good relationship is built on good communication. And what does that really mean? And what that means for everyone is a little bit different, but what that looks like for you guys is recognizing when it's like, this isn't you. I know you and this isn't you. You have touched on this several times, but to like key in on it a little bit, how do you approach mental health and conversations around emotional well-being and regulation and whatever with your two littles?
I mean, it's first and foremost, I mean, it goes right back to what we were just talking about here, communication. It's just the openness of it. And that's anything. Like, there's really nothing we shy away from as far as like talking to them. Are there things that we like have to say it a little bit different because they just not there, to understand it, or B, it's just like that heavy of a topic we don't have to do this. I'm ready for the silly example just yesterday, actually, on the way home from my parents, which we do every Sunday. There's a giant bug that was like, it'd been there for like a good 10 minutes before my son realized there was a bug that was on the windshield. And sure, there's been probably thousands of bugs that have hit our windshield and we're on there, but just maybe not that big. And it hit him that like, he realized there was something there and he thought that it was like, I don't know. I think he said rain. I don't know if it's snow. I don't know what he thought it was at first, but I'm like, no, that was a bug. He's like, what's it doing there? I'm like, well, it crashed into the car. He understands crash. He crashed into the car and now he's broken. And my wife and my mother-in-law, who comes with us every Sunday, are just like biting their tongue. And I wasn't trying. I wasn't like, oh, he's talking about death. How do I do it? He's had conversations at school. What's alive? And I don't know if they say dead, but maybe. He knows that means. My wife's father has been passed away for 12 years now to colorectal cancer. So we've asked where Grandpa is. We'll tell him heaven. But that was like a direct conversation. And it was like, he's like, so, is he going to go away? I'm like, nope, he's broken. That's where he's going to be forever. And I had to repeat it because he was tired, but that's where I went with. And like later on, my wife was like, did you mean to have this like awkward like death conversation? I'm like, no, what am I supposed to say? Like, he's just hanging out and he's just stretching, like
he's taking a nap.
So how do I answer that? I mean, he tests me all the time about how to answer things. Like, his whys are my favorite thing because it's like, okay, that's an easy one. Because, when you step on the brakes, the lights turn on. But then otherwise, like, what did he ask the other day? Are the clouds moving? And I'm like, So here's the thing, clouds move, and so is it. So it's like, you could get these really big, but it's like, nope, hold on, I can answer that, but give me a second to like how to answer that. So with everything, those are the fun, silly examples, but everything, the only thing that we like kind of like I don't want to say like kind of narrow down and not let them do, is like when they get really upset. Right. And like, I completely subscribe to this. Like, you can't force them to share. You can't force them to say, I'm sorry. You can't force them to hug. All makes sense to me for various reasons. But the number one is just developmentally, they're not there. Like, quit it. Trying to be logical. Quit your sarcasm. Like, none of this works because they're not there. But we do just tell them, like, you're allowed to be mean, or you're allowed to be angry. You're just not allowed to be mean. Mm-hmm. And the more you say things, like, they get it. That the conversation around emotions is that for us, we've talked about it, and you talked about it. No one's like he said something. Here we go back to this whole death thing. We don't talk about death a lot, but he knows that conversation with Grandpa a lot, and he just randomly shot off like yesterday morning to my wife, who's just casually having coffee, like sitting at the table as he's playing. I don't know why we even like brought it up, but he asked again, like, where he is, and he said heaven, and I can feel it, because that's tough for my wife. Grief is absolutely a challenge, and she's fine with it most days at all. But here he is asking this question, and he asked something like, can we see him, or something about like, when can we go to heaven, or I don't know, some version of that. And I'm gonna tear up just thinking about it, but she was like, come give me a hug. Here I am. I don't do this. This is like, so it's like those moments where it's like, nope, can't just be like, Grandpa's fishing. You'll see him. You can't with anything, because the more you do that, that becomes your norm. And all of a sudden they explode, and then what you're telling them is, what I was talking about, with like skin knees, or like that guy, you're that person now, stop crying. Don't do that. And, do we tell them that too? Sure. But like, it's also on the cushion of like, listen, just stop crying for a second. Like, just use your words, that's where we're gearing it towards. It's not a, please stop crying, this is getting on my nerves. It's a stop crying because these things. And we use that comparison too. It's a meeting him at her level, his level, and her at hers. Does she know those words? No. So sometimes that's where she's at, dude. But those words, but simultaneously, so it sounds simple, but it's not. It's communication. It's just being very comfortable saying exactly what you need to. You just may not be able to say it that the bug is dead. You can't. You have to kind of watch and what that means. I'll give you one last example as far as like his reactions. And he's my example for everything because he's 4. But this has been like months now. He was coming home from school, and kids are going to learn anything and everything from school. And that's fine. You have to be okay with that. Your job is now to navigate what that means, really, because they're just going to test it. But he was coming home calling people bad guys. And we're like, well, no one says that here. What are you talking about? Slowly but surely you realize he's saying that partly when he's tired, but not always. Every once in a while it would be less like something silly. It would be like, you're asking him to get changed, or, let's brush your teeth, or come to the table, or something like that. And he would get mad and tell you like, you're a bad guy. And you're just sitting there going, I'm just offering to clean up your toys, man. Like, what happened here? But what was happening was that you embarrassed him, or you threw off his what his mind was wanting to do, right? You frustrated him, and he doesn't know those words. But I could have easily been like, no, we don't say that. Like, you're not a bad, sit down, or get changed, or clean up, all those other reactions. And certainly in the beginning it was like, no, I'm not. Like, do you know what that, certainly because it caught you off guard, but like, again, what I was saying, my superpower, like I can step back and realize that's why. It's not just tired. He doesn't have the words for it. No kidding, right? And so it's like, if I'm not giving him the moment to A, feel that, and then B, like let him process that and give him a new tool that's like, no, you don't think I'm a bad guy. Did I hurt your feelings? Yeah. Ta-da. And then not that doesn't go away immediately, but now he has that. Now he has that tool. He has that skill. It's like, I don't have to call you a bad guy. I don't have to push you. I now know that I can tell you, you're in my space. Can you work somewhere else? I can, so it's like, if you're not saying it, what do you, like, you can't expect them to change, So there you go.
Well, it's cool. And it's ironic because it reminds me of another conversation I was having with another dad and about having these conversations about giving them the language.
Yeah.
And he was explaining that his 2-year-old will now say, "That hurt my heart."
There you go.
Yeah, because at first, again, he didn't have the language.
No.
This father was saying, like, I don't think we ever explicitly told him to say, like, "This hurts my heart."
Yeah.
But he picked it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And was able then to, instead of being like, "I hate you," or like, "You're mean," or "You're bad," now it's like, "You hurt my heart." And I thought that was just the most adorable thing in the world.
They know one version, until you help them figure out what the heck that... They're just like us, as grown-ups. The only difference is we have a catalog of, like, examples as to what that means. And that's the biggest, like, thing I always compare, like, being in middle school. That's where it works for me, is that my understanding that a toddler is the same thing as a teenager. So really the only difference here is they know a little bit more of what's going on, how to explain that. But then at the same time, they also don't. They have just a mess. And so from a teenager to a 20-year-old, we'll just like take, 25, that's when your brain starts to seal off. To that version is the same thing. They're the exact same. And now the new thing is that they have an even more of an understanding. So it's like, the more you figure that out, the more you just kind of embrace that, it drops you down a level. And it's not like you have to erase all the things that you know. It's like, to me, it's like refining it. It's like, it's like not calling him out. My son does the same thing, like, and he doesn't do that anymore. But when he was learning, like, how his body moves there, like food out, sometimes he'd tell you, like, that he's sad, and you're like, "What are you sad for?" He's like, "I'm sad because I think I need to poop." And it's like,
yeah,
I think you just need to poop. Your tummy probably doesn't feel great, but it was like he was trying to connect the dot. And like, can I laugh at that? Absolutely. But I'm going to explain that. Like, it's probably not sad. Do you just need to tell me you need to go to the bathroom? So it's like that. You're laughing because there's some version of it in everybody, but it's that moment right there. If you're looking at it like, this is just laughable and like, let me make a TikTok reel about it. Like, no, like you miss the moment that they're trying to connect a dot of an emotion to the real world. And it's like, I don't think you're... Sad would not be that you need to go... You just need to go to the bathroom, right? You might be sad because of whatever, however you want to explain it, So it's like, it's there. Your job is to kind of like make it make sense for them in that moment of life. And that's your job forever, is to navigate it. And eventually as they grow up, you're doing it at the same time. But for now, it's figuring out what you know and almost like unlearning it at the same time, to how to explain it. That's a whole example of like, teaching somebody how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. If you just said put the peanut butter on the bread, you're literally just going to put the jar on the bread, right? Yep. You have to kind of like walk it back for a second and realize that like, you know too much. They don't. Help them out,
Your example literally just made me think we had to reschedule this because my family was sick. My 2-year-old doesn't have the language to explain sick. She doesn't have the language to explain what is going on with her. So she told us there was spaghetti in her nose. And we were very, very confused. And we're like, we even got a flashlight out, JD. Like, we're like, honey, there's no spaghetti in your nose.
I don't remember us having spaghetti.
What she was trying to tell us was that she was really, really congested. Yeah. And so we're like, oh, you have a stuffy nose and it hurts. So like I'm sad I have to poop. I have spaghetti in my nose.
Think about all those different things that like you experience. And like, I was sick is a good example too, because it's like, you can't see a lot of that stuff. You have no idea. And like every time I get like sick after them, like whatever version that it is, I'm like, I hate sore throats. Man, hold on a second.
I do too.
He probably did, or she probably did. Like, hey, I had no idea. Like, this is awful. Like, what are they experiencing with it? So it's like, magnify that to the rest of the world, right? The rest of things they experience, like you just dropping them off at school, that seems fine. They're at a safe place. You just took them away from the two people, or, in my situation, the two people that they love the most right now, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, they might like their teacher. Yeah, they might love their friends, but think about what that, I mean, like, things like that, like, I don't know how that doesn't, like, blow people's minds sometimes. I'm like, that's, like, I mean, I enjoyed going to school, but, like, if I think about it, really, like, there were moments where I was like, I just got ripped away from my world. Like, this is scary. Like, how did you do that all day? Like, this is amazing, Like, it's like, all the things that they experience is like, from awful to good. It's like, wow, I don't even want to think about what that looks like for the first time, or I haven't in a while, but interesting. Okay. So I'm going to be a little more compassionate when you're sick, because you might have a sore throat, and I hate those. Like getting to a playground and they're just frozen and looking, and you're like, come on, we came here to play. This is a big thing. There's a bunch of kids climbing on all sorts of crap and like, laughing and having a great time, but like, they don't need to go running. This is wild to them right now. It's like,
yeah, like, where do you start? Where do I start?
Truly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think the common theme throughout this conversation and throughout a lot of what you do, through the different podcasts that you do and social media and whatever is, I say whatever a lot, but it's not whatever. Just like you say, like, I don't care. It's not whatever. But like, I
get called out. That's the only reason I'm paying attention to that, because I got called out a couple weeks that was like, Dad, you shouldn't say that. And I'm like, what did I just? I mean, I looked at my wife. I'm like, oh, there's another moment. Like, how do I explain this? It's like, and she kind of stepped in. She was like, Daddy doesn't mean that he doesn't care. It just means that I was like, it doesn't. So I have to watch. But it's like, that's a good example of like, moments that you have to. I've been probably saying it for as long as I can speak. So we'll go with like 40 years of my life. Some version of that has probably popped out. So am I going to change that overnight? No. Is it something that I probably should? At this moment, yes, because he knows what care means, and I'm telling him I don't care. But, that's, you have to weigh those out, right? I mean, I've certainly seen, dads and moms be like, well, I'm not changing that. I'm like, no, you can't. Maybe when you're 70, you don't get a chance. You don't have to, but right now, you're probably getting mad, and I probably did. And I don't even remember it. I probably did get frustrated because he said some version of that. So he's happily calling me out, and I'm smiling because I'm like, yeah, great. Like, I get to learn stuff, and I'm 43. Like, awesome,
Well, that's
Thanks
what
for doing that.
I was gonna say that the common thread through all of this is that you are open to change, and you are open to the fact that all of this is an evolution.
Yeah, seeing the world through other people's lens. Yes. That's truly what I believe in, And sometimes that leads you down a road of like, yep, not interacting with you again, and I don't like this story. But more times than not, it's just like, if nothing else, like even if I do arrive at that that destination, that it's like, yep, you're not the kind of person I want to stick around. I at least understand now where you are coming from, and that's what we have to do. No matter if you're talking about a little human or somebody twice your age, it's like we all. I don't want to sound like Deepak Chopra or something like that now, but it's like we all are. We're all connected in some way, shape, or form. I mean, even this right here, right? You and I are talking to each other, and somebody else is listening to that. So and we'll at least give it at the bare minimum that like one other person is listening, but there's three people connected in three different places of the world, listening to the same conversation, and then so it's like. You don't have, I mean, you can believe in God or Buddha or the Dalai Lama or whatever it is. That's still a common theme, that there's this connectedness, and you have that impact on somebody, I give you for those that are listening that don't have a kid example, I'll give you my adult version of all this, of how I make this make sense for like just the natural world, is my probably annoying reaction to my wife. But I know this works for the kid version too, but I love to thank the person at the cash out at like the checkout cashier, whatever, cashier, whatever, or the barista, or whatever that is. If I can't see their name tag, it drives me nuts because I can't thank Melissa or can't say, have a great day, Doug, because the person that has been ringing you up that whole time and their demeanor is just like, I just freaking cucumbers and just scanning it and putting it in. You can see that they're having a bad day. The minute you say, here's your receipt, you say blah, 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 like, have a good day. You too, thanks, Doug. You watch their face. And it's like I'm going to exaggerate, but you made their day potentially because you recognize that they were a human being on the planet. And I know this works because my son now will ask me when I like go through the Chick-fil-A for a lemonade of the week, what was that person's name? And I'm frustrated with it because I'm like, I don't know, Daniel. Their name tag was covered. I don't know, but they were super nice, weren't they? Like, I at least recognize that they were, so I'm at least friendly still, but it's like, if you don't believe that you have an impact, try it. Try at least thanking the next person with a name tag around you, and you watch them change everything because it's not the name, it's the fact that you recognize their existence in your world. You weren't just a annoying person, spending $500 on groceries and they had to bag that by themselves. It's like you were like, hey, you're here today. So there's if you want a trick of how this all works in that'll change everything because it makes you think about your impact and just watching somebody else's life and what that means, whether you have a little human being or an annoying dog that takes up all your bed in the background here, you start realizing what you're doing and what you mean and how important that might be to someone that just passes you by.
And you know what? Here's another superpower of yours. Superpower is the key word for this episode.
Beautiful superpowers? Are they beautiful
superpowers? Well, so typically when I do an episode, I have 2 questions that I know I will end on one of them, and I save it until the end. And you just answered the question that I wanted to ask you so beautifully. Beautiful. I'll tell you what the question was.
Sure, just to make sure I didn't cover it, right?
Just in case, because I want to give you an opportunity. But I'm also, to summarize what you said, is you're making people feel seen. Yeah. And you're doing that. You personally are doing that through saying someone's name. You're doing that through your podcasts and in letting people share their stories. You're doing that with your kids by validating their feelings. You are making people feel seen. The question I was going to end on is what do you hope other people take away from your journey? And maybe there's a different answer.
I mean, no, really. I mean, if I really had to sum up what happens in my day-to-day life, 9 times out of 10, whether it's something that brought me joy and brought me frustration, it was just because I saw it or didn't see it, right? So it's and I mean, it sounds wishy-washy. It sounds, like I said, I sound like some Buddhist monk, and maybe some version of me in a different life was.
Yeah.
But I can track that, and I can track storytellings so far back. I mean, my parents joke, and it's my joke now too, because they used to tell me that they couldn't wait to hear me talk, and then I did, and then they wished that I didn't because I just kept talking, obviously. But my kids do it, and so what it makes me do is I'm seeing them, and it's yep, that's what my parents were saying back then. My dad is that annoying person, and I always thought it was annoying when I was younger, probably middle school, and then it didn't matter because I wasn't always going out to eat with him in high school and college. But somebody would have he's a Yankees fan. He would have, somebody would have a ball cap of a team that he likes, and just to test them, he would ask them if they could name 5 players on the team, and you're sitting there going, "Oh God, Dad, that's just your cashier, stop it." But I know what he's doing. He's having a conversation, and I don't look for people, I don't look for anything extra, and not really that he was, but I don't look for anything extra in the sense of that's a cool tattoo. I have tattoos, and I've done that, but that was a lot of work to get to that. It took a lot of. It was recently with a anniversary dinner. The woman had a tattoo that's on the back of it's way back there on the back of my shirt underneath it, but she had it on her finger, and I spent the whole dinner back and forth trying to figure out if we had the same tattoo. And she was friendly to us on the way out, and I'm yep, gonna ask. But most of the time, that's not the case. I'm just simply just gonna say your name. So I'm not seeking out anything. It's just a natural connecting thing. I don't shy away if somebody talks to me. Maybe in the back of my head, I'm like, can you please stop talking to me right now? Because I just want to get my coffee and go home. But that's not who I am here in front of them. I'm maybe, if you really listen to me, I'm shorter. Or if you knew me, you'd be like, he's super annoyed right now. Like he just wants to go home. But you're not going to feel that from me. Everybody's allowed to have like that extra feeling because you probably just want to go home. But, you have to understand that you might be, and that's what I love, like, that you might be somebody else's like best day ever right there. There's a quote like you've heard, but it's not necessarily just the relationship you're in. It's the person that like it took all the courage in the world to turn around and ask you what your tattoos mean. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to you because you're wearing Pokemon hat and you look like you're 50. I don't know what's going on with your situation here. Yes, I'm next. Like you can be like that, but I don't know. Maybe that's extreme thinking, but like to me, it's like, what if I just was like, I'm not talking to you right now, man. Like I'm busy, and that person's going to go home and they'll maybe be upset the rest of the day. I don't know. Or maybe just for that moment, they're like, I really wanted to ask that guy that question and he was a jerk. And I don't want to ask anybody a question ever again. I don't want to be responsible for that. And then so I don't want to be responsible for my kid when, he's, screaming at me for the third time. Like, Dad, can you come look at this? No, I'm washing a dish right now. I'm washing a dish right now. Like, stop it. Put the dish down. He just wants to show you the monkey that's on the screen for 5 seconds. It's that. That's how it reverberates for me is just recognizing that like somebody just wants you to have their moment. And that might be the dude that you never will see again. Or it could be your mom, you never know. And I haven't always been that version, but that's definitely my enlightenment that's coming is like that. Like, and maybe I was a jerk, when I was like 20 or 30, some version that it was like, I didn't want to talk, but there was some part of it was still Mr. Nice Guy. I can think of 1,001 like examples, if you ever had the time of moments where I like baffled somebody because I was this guy tattooed and I held the door for you. And it was like, so it's taken a long time to get this. So please don't try and do this. Don't get hurt. This is not for, no, it doesn't happen overnight, but it like truly just thank Doug next time you're at the cashier and watch, and it'll just springboard into like it's like that whole being grateful for things, it's weird to be grateful for small things at the end of the day. Do it for a week straight and you'll never go back. It's the same thing. You'll constantly be that annoying person that's thinking and everybody's just trying to go home, but you'll feel so good that you connected with humans and we're world's full of them, right? So
yeah. Talk about a soundbite. That's going to be the hashtag thank Doug. Hashtag thank Doug.
Thank Doug. Really?
Yeah. So I am so grateful. Talking about being grateful, I'm grateful to you for being flexible with me. This has taken us a while to get to this point, to have you on my show. I was on one of your shows.
Yes,
but I appreciate your understanding. I appreciate everything that you're doing. I love the message and the energy that you're putting out into the world. Where this will all be linked in the show notes, but where can my listeners find you if they want to learn more?
It's fragilemoments.org/bio. And everything even, is there, but it's in a nice trimmed down form that's like maybe 5 buttons, I think is where I'm at. But it leads you to the website of my mental health community, which bubbles into everything else, is where you can find me.
That's awesome. Thank you, JD.
Thank you.
And I will be following your journey for sure.
Thank you.
JD, thank you for taking the time to share your story with me. Being on your podcast was such an honor, and having you on Quiet Connection just deepened my appreciation for what you're doing as a mental health advocate and an all-around kind human. Listeners, be sure to check the show notes to learn more about JD's work. You can keep up with us on Quiet Connection by following us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Quiet Connection Podcast. You can help our community grow by leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and consider sharing our episodes on social media. To share your personal journey, you can contact us through our website at quietconnectionpodcast.com or by email at quietconnectionppmh@gmail.com. Join us next time when another story is told and you realize you are not alone. I see you.